How much money should I be investing? How much money should I have saved up by the age of 30 or 40? And how much money do I need for retirement are commonly asked questions. So in this video, I'm going to show you just how much money you should have at the start of each of your decade in your life. In addition, and more importantly, I'm going to share the principles you should try to follow and the goals you should look to achieve at each decade based on my experience and the research which I've done. Starting with the decade of your 20s, this is generally where most people's net worth is at its lowest, and understandably so. You begin college and end up leaving with a mountain of debt once you have completed your studies. It's difficult to place a dollar number for when you're in your 20s, and the reason for that is some people may have fortunate parents who pay for their education, and some go a little further with giving them a lump sum of cash to get them started in life. However, still within the decade of your 20s, if we jump at the age of 25 years old, according to the Federal Reserve, the average savings for a 25-year-old in the United States is over $20,000. However, averages are usually skewed by the select few individuals who are extremely privileged. The number which makes more sense to look at in this situation is the median, which is what the majority of people have, and that is just a little over $5,000. In your 20s is not really about the amount of money you have saved, but rather the financial habits and principles that you should follow for the rest of your life that will pay off massively for the decades to come. So with that said, some of the key things to focus on in your 20s is that firstly, you should focus on paying off your small high interest rate debts, anything greater than 8%, such as credit card repayments. These sort of debts will increase way faster than any of your investment. The best way to keeping more of what you make is by paying this off first. Make it a priority. The second thing to focus on in your 20s is to track your income and expenses. This is crucial to identifying where you are overspending and how much per month you are saving. Have a look at this image for a guide on how to create your budget sheet. Creating it to track your income and expenses can be extremely simple. And if you want more details on how to go about this, then have a look at my video attached here in the cards above and in the description box below, where I speak about how to create and stick to a budget. The third thing to focus on in your 20s is to create an emergency fund. This is ideally between 3 to 6 months of your monthly living expenses. But when you are a little younger in your 20s, having it saved up for 1 month of your living expenses should suffice for now. Once you have this, ensure you are maxing out your 401k account. This account can be named differently based on the country you are in, but what it is essentially is an investment account where you don't ever pay taxes on your returns. Not paying taxes and having this account grow for decades will provide an astronomical return on investment. Even if you don't have a lot of money, start somewhere. Being in your 20s, following these money habits is more important than the amount of money you have put in. Moving into the decade of your 30s, the guidelines set up by Fidelity, who are a reputable American multinational financial services corporation, is that you should have saved up 1 times your annual salary. So if your salary is 40k per year, by the age of 30, you should have saved up 40k. Now this includes all of your money that's in your savings account, investment account, and your retirement fund. And the 3 goals for this decade is to start saving a bigger percentage of your income. This can be done with the help of creating a budget sheet, which you did in your 20s. By going into the details of your expenses, you will be able to identify your bad spending habits and cut them out, which will result in higher savings. Aim to save at least 10 to 15% per month. Number 2, avoid increasing your spending just because your salary increases. This is extremely difficult to do, I understand, but the more you save now, the less of a financial stress you will have when you are older. And number 3, work towards becoming debt-free, except for your mortgage. If you want more details on this, then have a look at my video where I speak about if it makes more sense to pay off your mortgage first or to invest that money instead. I will attach it up here in the cards and leave a link to it in the description box below. Moving on to the next decade, your 40s. So the guideline set up by Fidelity was to have 1 times your salary in savings at the age of 30, 2 times at the age of 35, and 3 times at the age of 40. Most of you listening here may be a little surprised to hear that. How is that even possible? I'm here to tell you that it is possible if you have followed the guidelines set out in the previous decades. Let me break it down for you with the use of an example. The goal is to have saved 3 years of your salary by the age of 40. So 40k times 3, the total is 120k. By the time you are 30, you would have already saved up 40k. Now, had you put that money into the S&P 500, which has generated on average since inception 10% per year, that 40k would be worth $150 $103,000, meaning you would have already saved up 103k of the 120k by the age of 40 just by following good money habits and investing from your 20s. In the 10 years or 120 months from being 30 to 40 years old, you would have need to save an additional $17,000, which equates to $142 per month. Now, if you compare that to your yearly salary of 40k or your monthly salary of $3,333, $142 only equates to 4.3% savings. And as mentioned earlier in the video, you should be aiming to save per month 10 to 15%. So this is possible to do. The key takeaway from this is that compound interest is your friend, and the only way you can take full advantage of compound interest is to start investing and developing good money habits at a young age. The focus area for when you are 40 years old is that you should look to max out your retirement contributions in preparation for your retirement. You should especially do this if the company you work for matches the contribution you make into your retirement fund. The second focus area is to manage future expenses. What this means that if you want to purchase another holiday home or looking after your parents' expenses such as assisted care and so forth, those expenses are massive, so manage those along with your other future expenses. Moving on to the fifth decade of your life, savings start to become a little bit more ambitious, as the guideline set up by Fidelity states that you should have saved up 6 times your yearly salary. So let's assume your salary has increased to 60k per annum, so it would mean 6 times 60k, reaching a total of $360,000. If you have managed to reach the financial goals when you were in your 20s, 30s and 40s, then reaching the goal in your 50s should be doable. Let's break down the numbers once again. By reaching each of your decade goals at the age of 40, you would have saved up 120k. Now, at the age of 40, putting the 120k into the S&P 500 at a return of 10% per annum, you should have made over $300,000 by the time you turn 50. But of course, this is the S&P 500. Markets can make a net return of negative 15% for the year as well. So there's always a possibility that you will make less than the 300k mentioned. However, in those 10 years from the ages of 40 to 50, you earn an additional salary of 60k. Saving 10% of that per year, you would make a net return of $6,000 per year. And you would be doing that for 10 years, which would result in a total of $360,000, provided you have also invested those $6,000 every year into the investment fund. At this age, you want to be focusing on preserving your money, considering you're getting closer to retirement. So instead of having all your money in a risky asset such as the S&P 500 index fund, consider putting half of it into an investment fund where you don't stand any chance of losing the money, such as fixed deposits or bonds. The second thing you want to focus on is setting out a plan on how much money you expect to withdraw every month to live off of, but still ensuring that the amount of money you have saved up does not reduce, with the help of compound interest, of course. And the reason for this is, of course, you don't want to end up withdrawing everything by the age you are, let's say, 85 years old and then not have any money going forward. Moving on to the 6th decade and beyond, the guideline set up here is to have 8 times your salary saved up, which once again I think it's possible to achieve if you just follow the principles set up in the prior decades. I would like to make it very clear that these guidelines do not take into account any major expenses that you may have or situations where you may not have had an income for a period of time. In addition, starting with this plan with $0 at the age of 40 also may mean that you would be unable to meet the goals in the following decades. If you have liked this video, then consider watching my video about 7 differences between the rich and poor people, which I think you will enjoy. Like and subscribe for more, and see you guys in the next video.